It's Chris from retrosession.org. I'm so happy you're here. This is episode 9 of my daily podcast, Step into Bliss. Today, we're going to step into peace. So what's peace? I ask the question, and at first, I feel like it's going to be easy to come up with a definition using words. And I quickly realized that it's kind of hard to put into words. And why is that? Peace is something to be experienced, not defined. And I think that's it. I'll attempt to use some words right now, but they're never going to capture the essence of what peace really is. Words just can't do that. So what's peace to me? Peace is contentment. Peace is a lack of constant striving and fighting. Peace is the spacious, calm feeling that's available at all times right now, right here. Nothing is needed to get there. That's the irony of peace. You don't have to do anything. In fact, doing is never going to get you there. Doing is going to get you more of what you already have. I spent a lot of years doing. Sometimes I feel like I'm repeating myself every podcast. And I don't know that I am, but it always comes back to the stories from my past. The disturbances, the pain, the suffering. And I wasn't at peace, clearly. And everything that I did to try to find some peace, it failed. Doing always failed. And I sit here trying to think of others that I know, people that have peace in their lives, and there aren't that many. And you know what? It's not what they do that brings them peace. I think it's what they're not doing. They're not looking for offense with the people around them. They're not looking to fill their calendar with more events, more responsibilities. They're not looking to make everyone like them. They're just themselves. Solid. Easygoing. Willing to take what comes. Satisfied with what is and what they have. You know what that is? That's not a doing. That's the absence of doing. There's no amount of success that I could find that would bring me peace. My law firm was doing really well near the end. Really well. Beyond my wildest dreams. But you know what? I didn't have peace. And if I had somehow made 10 times the money that I was making in those final months, I wouldn't have had any more peace than I did, and that was absolutely none. In fact, making 10 times more money probably would have increased the heartache and pain and decreased my peace proportionally. There's nothing I could do or earn or say. There's no relationship I could have with the right romantic partner, the right friends, my family. There's nothing I could have done to find that peace. But you know what? The interesting thing is, when I found peace, I found my partner, my wife. My relationship with my family has gotten deeper. I have more deep friendships than I've ever had. So it may be tempting to look at peace and think, well, if I have those things, I'll have peace. But I think we have to flip that. When you find peace, you'll have all those things. That's a big distinction. That is not a meaningless platitude. The peace comes first. Kind of like in the positivity episode. I said something like positivity blooms from the soil of contentment, from healing. I think it was healing. The same thing holds here. These are not qualities that we can develop on their own. These are the fruits of the work that we do. Letting go. It always comes to letting go. The more I cling, the more I hold on to material things, my visions for success, what I think the perfect relationship looks like, what the perfect me looks like. And I think that's probably the underlying issue for many of us. When I finally let go of that perfect vision of me, that really, it doesn't exist, but when I finally let go, when my vision for a perfect life, when I finally released that, that's when peace came. It might seem hopeless. There's nothing I can do, say. There's nothing I can buy. There's nothing I can achieve that's going to bring me peace. That could be a little scary at first. And if you feel that way, great. Sit with it. There is nothing you can do to bring peace into your life. Surrender isn't a doing. There are versions of surrender that are a doing, certainly. I attempted many of those. Surrender can feel like an achievement. Yeah, man, if I could just surrender 33% more, I'd be 33% happier in my life. I'd have 33% more peace. No, it doesn't work that way. All the conditional thinking, if this, then that. It's all conditional thinking is. If this, then that. Finally, I'll be happy. You see kids do it. Well, I'm in grade school now. When I get to middle school, it's going to be great. I can't wait. And then dreaded middle school happens, and I didn't experience middle school because I was homeschooled for those years. But in middle school, I've seen my daughter do it. Oh, I can't wait to go to high school. And frankly, life is a little better for her now that she's in high school. Middle school was pretty terrible, especially during COVID, but I digress. And then kids in high school, I can't wait to go to college. And then in college, I can't wait to get a job. And then you have a job and you want to get that promotion and you get all the promotions. And then you're living for retirement. And then what are you living for then? You're just waiting to die? This is a road to nowhere. Let's say we find that peace in those retirement years. Then what happens? I've now spent 50 years of my life working for the last 20 or at most 30. And what am I doing? Traveling? Enjoying myself? How many people are truly peaceful in retirement? There may be some. But how many are truly peaceful? Have they really achieved what they were looking for? And even if you can achieve peace in retirement, do you want to throw away 2/3 of your life so the last third is good? I don't think that's peace. I think that's settling. Okay, cool. I hear what you're saying. Now just get to it. Tell me the 3 things I need to do to have peace in my life. I'm sure some of you are thinking that. And congratulations if you recognize yourself in those statements. That's actually a huge step. I can't give you 3 steps to peace. It's the 3 steps to X, Y, and Z that are ruining your peace. It's half the self-help industry, being charitable. Do X, Y, and Z. Steps 1, 2, and 3, and you'll finally be happy. That is until the initial high of discovering this new method dies off and you're unhappy again. And the next book comes out and we pick that book up and then we find out the 4 steps to life satisfaction and we put those in place and it worked for 2-3 weeks, a month. And then it's the next seminar, the next book, the next course. I say all this, and I'm sure some of you identify. I say all this because that was most of my adult life, especially in my 30s. I was committed to personal development. I was committed to doing everything, to leaving it all on the table despite my anxiety, increasing anxiety, despite my depression. I was committed to doing everything I could to find peace in my life. And it didn't come. I was on a downward spiral. And all that stuff, especially the self-help, I mentioned it in the positivity episode, but it becomes a kind of toxic positivity. I'm responsible for my own happiness, my own peace. So what can I do about it? It's my fault that I'm unhappy. It's my fault that I'm anxious, that I'm depressed, that I'm having panic attacks, that life feels unmanageable. It's not your fault. Best thing you can do, give up. Now, I'm not talking giving up on your life. I'm talking about giving up on the striving, giving up on believing that you just need to do that next right thing, to make that next right decision, to find peace. No. Stop looking for that next right decision, that next book, that next course, the new meditation method. I've been there. I've done that. It's a road to nowhere. If you're not sure if you're on that path, think back to everything you've done, maybe even including listening to this podcast. Have you ever felt like you're on a roller coaster? Like that self-help roller coaster. Good days, bad days. Good days, bad days. Over and over and over again. I rode that roller coaster for far too long. So maybe you can think your way into it. Positive thinking, affirmations. Listen to the episode on positivity. You aren't going to fake it till you make it. There's no faking it. In fact, the faking it sometimes creates an imposter syndrome. Do you know how many therapists I've known who have the deepest unhappiness, the highest levels of depression and anxiety? If anyone could fake it until they make it, it should be therapists, right? What about yoga teachers? I'm a yoga teacher. In fact, I signed up for yoga teacher training around the lowest point of my life, and I don't think that's a coincidence. Often yoga teachers are the most anxious people you will ever meet. They were attracted to teaching yoga because they hope to find peace for themselves. Same things with therapy, probably meditation teachers. They're looking to heal themselves, and it didn't work. It's hopeless. It feels hopeless. I've been there. Signed up for yoga teacher training with some of the last of the money I had from my days as a lawyer. This will finally make it all okay. I leave my profession, my hated profession, the profession that felt like it was driving me to an early death. Yoga teachers must be happy, must be a much better life than being a lawyer. Well, guess what? It had nothing to do with my profession. My lack of peace, my unhappiness, my anxiety, my stress had nothing to do with my profession. And now I'm supposed to help others find peace when I haven't found it myself? Now we get into imposter syndrome. And the usual advice for imposter syndrome is, you're good enough. You went through the training. You know what to do. You're not an imposter. Just affirmations. You know what I needed? My early years as a yoga teacher, I needed to feel like an imposter. Sure, I could lead an exercise class, but that's never been what yoga is about. I was an imposter. That's okay. I'm not condemning myself, but I was an imposter. And adding on that feeling of being an imposter, not just knowing I was an imposter, that doesn't help the situation. That doesn't increase the peace. Recognizing I was an imposter was really the first step, honestly. So we have that first order on happiness. Then we have the second order on happiness that comes from knowing that we should be happy, right? I must be doing all the wrong things. I'll find that next right thing. No, it's not going to do it. So the challenge for me is, with this podcast, how do I explain how to find peace when the thing that's taking away the peace is finding ways to find peace, or finding ways to find a good life, or finding ways to improve things? Constant striving. It's a challenge. We've really taken the first step already. Really listen to what I've been saying. There's nothing you can do, but that doesn't have to be a hopeless place. Stop trying. I don't mean stop trying and stay in bed all day and don't go to your job and don't take care of the kids. That's not what I'm talking about. Once you've figured out that there's nothing you can do about it, you're not just going to stop existing. You're still going to put one foot in front of the other. The bills are going to get paid. The kids are going to get taken care of. It's all going to happen, whether you're eating yourself alive to do it or not. In fact, it's going to go a lot easier once you stop worrying about it. I know. I've been there. But, who's going to take care of it if I don't? It'll get taken care of. You can still act. You can still do the things that you need to do without all the internal strife. It seems impossible right now if you're struggling. Life doesn't require you to be better and do better. It doesn't require you to strive harder and find the next right step. You are enough right here, right now. Beating yourself up isn't going to get you anywhere. Fighting with yourself isn't going to get you anywhere. Thinking you're not good enough, it's going to get you nowhere. I think this might take a little faith. Because until you've realized you can get a whole lot of things done without doing anything, I think it takes a little bit of faith. Accepting that you're great as you are. There's nothing else to do. No one to be. Surrendering to what is. That takes some faith until you've experienced it. But then once you get that first taste of peace, it kind of snowballs from there. Once you realize the bills still get paid without the anxiety, the bills still get paid without the constant worry. But I do think it takes some faith initially. You have to be willing to experiment, to get curious about it. And I think you'll see, with just a little bit of time, that the worry has never gotten you anywhere. The self-hatred has never gotten you anywhere. You're enough. Stop trying. Just for now. Give it a week, a month. You can always go back to being a worried mess. Okay, so there's a measure of trust, taking that first step towards surrender, and keep in mind these are baby steps. It's not another task to complete. It's not another item to check off. You're not a failure if you fail at surrendering. But once you've taken those first steps, those baby steps, and you start to see that it doesn't all fall apart, maybe you'll be emboldened to take some bigger steps. You can live the life you've always dreamed of, and it's effortless. But accepting that it's effortless is this difficult part. So there's some things we can do besides just trusting that life can be effortless and easy. Mindfulness, talked about it, demonstrated it. Seeing what really is. Seeing how much of that strife, the anguish, I'll give you a hint, all of it is internal. All the fighting. It's all internal. We're just seeing it manifest in the world around us, but it comes from the inside. And you know what? As our internal world starts to get peaceful, the external world gets peaceful as well. It doesn't mean that the whole world suddenly changes, that there's no longer any violence, disorder. It doesn't mean that. But the world around us changes when we change. When we stop and notice. When we surrender to what is. Okay, so we've trusted enough to take that first step towards surrender, not knowing where we're headed, but maybe testing the waters. Not even really understanding what surrender is, but making that first step anyway. Another key component of finding peace, again, it's a negative step in a sense. We're not adding anything. We're taking away. Because the peace is already there. It's everything that's covered over top of it that's getting in the way. So for me, a key component of that was healing. And that word gets thrown around a lot, so I want to be really clear here. I'm talking about real, permanent healing. I'm not talking about the roller coaster, the self-help roller coaster earlier, or the roller coaster of spiritual healing I've seen so many get on. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about real healing. I found it through retrocession. The process I discovered at my lowest point, this process that reliably and permanently removes the core wounds that are affecting us every single day. The programming that runs every time we're triggered, that sends us off into a downward spiral, or has us saying things we don't mean, or acting in ways that we're ashamed of. The programming that has us running around like chickens with our heads cut off, anxious and depressed. It isn't working. But unfortunately, it's not as simple as just deciding that I'm not going to be damaged anymore. The fortunate fact is that it's possible to heal. I'm proof of it. I used retrocession. I'm sure there are many ways, but I used retrocession. And once I discovered it, I used it on a daily basis, chipping away at all the unworthiness, all those core wounds. And gradually, well, sometimes not so gradually, sometimes big leaps happened when I dropped a core wound and its associated programming. Sometimes I would stand there and just in awe of how much had changed in a single day. But it was never that I had added something new. I hadn't learned a new technique for living that made things better. I hadn't found a new way for making decisions. It wasn't anything like that. I had simply chipped away at what was piled on top of the piece that is always there underneath the surface. Peace is always there. And I know if you're struggling, you just have to trust me on this. And it doesn't require all that much trust. Just hear what I have to say and know that right under the surface is peace. It's surrounding you. It's pervading you. It is you. So take a moment if you can. If you're not driving, if you're at home, can you find a comfortable seat? Lie down on the couch or in your bed or the floor, wherever you're going to be comfortable. Just breathe. Lying there, sitting there. Just breathing. There's time for all the worry later. Let's just take a few minutes. Take a break from all that. If thoughts, worries, if any of that comes in, just allow it. Don't push it away. It's not a failure. Just notice it. And come right back to where we are, relaxing. Notice the comfort that you feel in your body. Where do you feel comfortable? What feels good? Notice your breath. The expansion and contraction of your chest. Sometimes just breathing can feel really good. Notice the sounds around you in the room. Ambient noises, like the house or building settling. Noises filtering in from outside. Maybe you hear traffic or birds chirping. Maybe noises from elsewhere. The sound of my voice. You're floating here in the midst of it all. Just notice. If the mind starts to try to run down a rabbit trail, that's okay. But as soon as you notice it, just come right back to those sounds you hear in the room. There's no wrong way to do it. If you find yourself worrying about whether you're doing it right, you're not. Just notice. It's like you're floating effortlessly on a wave of sound. Notice. Those waves have a kind of rhythm. You're not really looking for it so much or trying to find it. Just notice it. The sounds come and go. They increase in volume and decrease. It's probably a very complex rhythm, and there's no way to capture it. And you don't need to do that. Just notice there's a kind of rhythm to it. And you start to float on those waves, rising and falling. You might even really feel like your body is lifting and lowering on those waves of sound. even that sensation of being here, lying or sitting down, that feeling of being in your body. It rides those waves. It's also spacious and free. Each wave, you relax a little bit deeper, sink in a little bit more. Enjoy. But we're just getting started. Through these waves, notice the very tips of your toes. You're feeling the world through the tips of your toes. And gently start to scan up through toes to balls of your feet, through arches and heels. Relaxing, releasing as you go, scanning up through ankles, into shins, through calves and knees. Starting to scan up through thighs. Slowly, attention rises toward the hips. Now scanning through hips, into the lower abdomen, rising up through abs, into the rib cage, up through heart center, and the top of your chest. Once you're up to the tops of your shoulders, scan down from fingertips, up through fingers and hands, through wrists and forearms. Relaxing, releasing through elbows, and scanning through upper arm to the tops of your shoulders. And now through neck. At your jaw, notice if there's tension there, if teeth are clenched, allow your jaw to fall open. And relaxing through mouth, nose, eyes. Now let's slow the scan as we start to come up through forehead. We're really scanning up through the entire brain, so take it real slow, pausing as needed. As you scan up, you start to feel the brain relaxing. Yeah, there's no muscles there, but you'll know it when you find it. You feel it kind of settling as you slowly scan up through the brain, down to the very core of your head, making our way up through the skull, rising up still further, getting closer to the top of your head, relaxed so deeply down to the very center of your brain. Attention pauses at the top of your head, and rapidly scan down through the whole body to the soles of your feet, relaxing even deeper, then bouncing attention from soles of your feet back to the top of your head and back down again as quickly as you'd like, as many times as you'd like, each pass through the body. If you notice a stuck spot, that's okay. Just pass right through it, and when you bounce your attention back the other direction, just relax a little deeper every time through, and maybe some spots are stuck and you don't find a way to release those, and that is okay. We're just scanning through the body a few times more, letting go, releasing, relaxing, down to the very core of your being. If thoughts come in, no big deal. Just gently and lovingly bring your attention back to where you're scanning. As many times as it takes, even dozens of times. It's beautiful. And then the scan starts to slow. eventually coming to rest at the soles of your feet. And the scan stops. Shift your attention back to the sounds in the room. Wave upon wave. A tapestry of sound, you, awareness, floating in the midst of it all. Notice. Do you resist the relaxation? Probably involuntarily, but do you resist it? Where do you feel that resistance? Notice it. Where does your body, your mind, your emotions, where do they fight the relaxation? Nothing to do about it now, just noticing. Do you feel it as a sensation, a pressure, a pushing back? Is the mind saying in some way, no, no, no? Just notice. It's okay. Allow your awareness to rest on one of those spots where you're resisting. Rest your mind there. Again, there's no wrong way to do this. If you're doing it right. Just sitting with that resistance. Whatever it feels like, whatever it looks like to you, just be there with it. Now, rewinding through time, revisit a time when you felt this resistance in the past. Could be earlier in the day, a week ago, a month ago, 25 years ago. You'll know when you find it. It's going to pop up. It's not a thinking process. You're not searching for it. It pops up. What do you see? Where are you? You're looking through your eyes at that time, that earlier time. What's happening? Allow the details to build, see the colors, hear the sounds around you. Are there others there? But most importantly, feel what you felt. Where were you resisting peace then? There's no one-size-fits-all here. This may be unexpected. Just sit with it, whatever comes up. You don't need to figure it out. Just be there with it. Noticing what the sensation of resistance feels like. Noticing what you're seeing in this earlier memory. How you otherwise feel emotionally. Be there with it for a few moments longer. Now, in that place of resistance, start to notice it's like the center of a whirlpool. It starts to rotate. Maybe you feel it somewhere in the chest or the head, somewhere else in the body. Maybe it's not in the body, but you start to notice this spot, this resistance, this holding back. It starts to rotate. Could be clockwise or counterclockwise. Doesn't matter which, just notice it starts to rotate, small at first, right there. That spot of resistance, it starts to get bigger. The whirlpool takes up a little bit more space. And it starts to rotate, maybe even speeding up. That whirlpool sweeps around and around. You just keep that up, really feel it. You might feel it as a wave passing through the body. It gets bigger and bigger, at least big enough to encompass the head. This whirlpool passing through the head. Maybe it continues to get bigger. It can even get so big that you really feel as if the whole body is caught up in this whirlpool as it swims around and around. You might even feel yourself floating in this whirlpool, originating at that place of resistance. It comes around and around again and again. Notice what happens. Notice what arises or falls away in the body, what arises or falls away in that memory, how that memory changes. Maybe other memories come up. Everyone's different. Just noticing as you sweep that whirlpool around again and again. Just notice. Not trying to do anything except bring that whirlpool around and around and around. It can be as big as you'd like, with as much energy as you'd like. Or maybe it's slow and steady. However it is, you're doing it right. Just keep it up. You might start to notice the resistance softens. It may not fall apart right away, but it starts to soften, maybe breaks apart. It's like rust on an old car. You tap it with a hammer and it just kind of falls away. Or old paint on a wall. It gets brittle and loose. The resistance, cracks start to show as you bring that around and around and around. And that whirlpool coming at least through the head from one side of the brain to the other, around through the body, depending where it's located. You just bring it around again and again, noticing what happens. Maybe the body's caught up in it. Maybe you feel yourself lifted and lowered on these waves, this whirlpool coming around. You're safe, secure, held, supported. It comes around and around, really feeling it and noticing how the resistance changes, if it does. You might start to notice a kind of spacious feeling where that resistance once was. It's like space is opening up around it. It's no longer tight, constricted. And it can take some time. You may continue this long after this episode ends. You can stay right where you are. Just keep that whirlpool coming around again and again. Just noticing where that resistance to peace sits. How it feels, how it changes. If other memories come up, that's fine. Allow them to come up, just bringing that whirlpool around again and again, really feeling it in your body. And maybe eventually this resistance drops. And there may be more spots, but at least this spot is loosened, released. And if not, that's okay. You can always come back to it later. But if you find this one released, maybe you rewind the podcast back to the beginning of this segment and pick another spot. Maybe you do it today. Maybe you do it tomorrow, a week from now. Find the resistance to peace. Find the tension. Find those spots that resist relaxation. Get that whirlpool going, clockwise or counterclockwise, really feeling it, allowing it to expand at least big enough that the whirlpool includes the head. You can do it over and over again. Different spots, the same spot, your choice. Watch what happens if you do this a couple times, a few times. Every day for a week. Couple times a day for a week. Watch what happens. Not trying to do anything. Not pushing anything away. Just relaxing into it. Sweeping that whirlpool around in each spot where the resistance sits. And maybe you start to see that peace, that peace underlying everything. Maybe you start to see it peeking out from beneath the stress, the anxiety. When that happens, know that you've taken a first step. I'm Chris from retrosession.org. This is Step into Bliss. Thanks for listening.